Happy birthday, America! Don't you know, it's the week of 4th of July, and you may not know this, but in our family, the 4th of July and Memorial Day and President's Day and Labor Day, they're all really, really important. We love our country, and it's because my husband loves his country. And growing up in our family, in the Corwin family, you would be able to experience all the things that has to do with America. I wonder today, could you answer questions about America? Would you say that your children know about the founding fathers? Do they know what the Bill of Rights is? It's okay if they don't, because you know what? You're going to get a chance to learn, just like I learned when I married Warren. So today we are going to be talking about my favorite subject, or should I say my husband's favorite subject, America. Welcome to the Moms Like Us podcast, where moms just like you learn strategies, systems, and skills through expert interviews and real-life insight designed to take your marriage, mothering, and home to the expert level. Hi, I'm Mona Corwin, your mom mentor and host, author, international speaker, and the founder of the Moms Like Us Academy. I've been coaching moms for over 25 years, and I have some really good news for you. Motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. You can crush it at motherhood instead of motherhood crushing you. So let's get to today's show. Have you ever seen like an interviewer that's like the man on the street, and they go out in the street and they start asking people questions about certain topics? Well, I saw one the other day, and honestly, I was a little bit horrified. Yeah, horrified. Like, I know it's a strong word, but friend, I was like, oh, I can't believe this. Like, I couldn't believe it. They went to a beach and they went around the city, and they were asking millennials, or like people under 40, your age probably, what the Declaration of Independence was. When did America become a nation? What does the 4th of July mean? They were asking them, who did we get our independence from? It was amazing how many could not answer it. They didn't know. You know, as moms for America, we need to remember that it is our job, it is our right, it is our duty to our country to make sure that our kids know these things. Not always will they know these things. But you know what? It's just like learning scripture or something important. You can raise patriots. You can. I didn't try very hard. The curriculum was kind of in our favor back then. But there's great curriculum, and we're going to have a guest on soon that's going to tell you those things. I'm excited for you to meet her. But I want to instill in you the thought that raising your children to be patriots is ensuring the next generation and the generation after that. Now, I'm not talking politics. I'm really not. I'm talking about our country, the greatest country in the history of the world. And I'm not exaggerating. We've done more for the civilized world than any other country. And in our country, our freedoms and our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, they keep us safe. Now, with COVID and everything that happened recently, you're going to see that, yeah, there was a lot of countries that they started kind of bossing them around, telling them what to do. Not so in the United States of America. They weren't allowed to do some things because our Constitution protects us. But here's the key. It protects us in this generation. But we could lose it. We could lose it very easily. And raising patriots to know the history so they don't repeat the problems of the history, and to have them love their country and understand the great and mighty men of our country. And that we really are blessed by God to have the country that we have. Now, You might not know this, but we have a flag out in front of our house, and it has a light on it because my husband knows you got to have a light on your flag at night. My kids know how to fold a flag. My kids know that America is important and it's valuable. You know, I know that a lot of people say, oh, your kids will grow up and they'll go off to college and they'll go crazy and they'll learn all kinds of nutty stuff in university. Well, they just might. But you know what? If you instill things correctly inside of them, they're not going to lose it. They're not. If they grow up to be patriots, they're going to stay patriots. When my children left, and this is not bragging, because I did a lot of things that were wrong. I absolutely didn't. And if you're in the Moms Like Us Academy, you know that I have. But truly, when my kids left university, they all still had their faith intact. They all still loved Jesus. They were all patriots when they left. They were not fooled. They know their apologetics and they knew how to defend their faith and they knew how to defend their freedom because we taught them. And it wasn't hard. I'm going to have lots of really fun stuff inside the Moms Like Us Academy for you people, you moms that are in that academy. And oh, by the way, it'll be opening up soon again. It only opens up once or maybe twice a year. And so if you want to be part of our academy, then go ahead and click on some of the links that you'll find and go and get on the wait list because we have a great time in the academy learning all kinds of things that moms need to know. And we have great things on the 4th of July. All right. I am super excited to be able to bring a guest on with me today, and her name is Juleen Jackson. And Juleen is so smart about when it comes to all the things that have to do with patriotism and understanding our founding fathers and all of that stuff. Now, I'm going to read Juleen's bio because I want to get it right and I want to get it perfect because she is worthy of everything that is written about her. Juleen Jackson is the mother of 7 children, 2 of whom were lost in infancy. Thank you. Juleen has actively served her community everywhere that she lives. She serves as the vice president for the D.C. chapter of American Mothers and the president of the United Women's Forum. That is really cool. I really love that about you, Juleen. And she's supporting her husband. Al's service in the Utah State Senate and her son Frank's path to the MBA. Juleen is a certified instructor for the Thomas Jefferson Center overseas for Moms for America cottage meetings virtually to thousands of moms annually. Juleen is an inspiring speaker and a teacher bringing the Constitution and the principles of liberty to life in homes and hearts of mothers across the nation to strengthen families and inspire civic action. Juleen and her family live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and they love being surrounded by the beauty and history of our nation's capital. I'm so excited to have Juleen on. I'm going to bring her up out of the green room. And there she is. Hi there.
Hello.
I'm
Hi,
so
Mona.
happy you're here. I'm so happy you came and to talk to our moms. You live in D.C.
I do. Pray for us.
My whole thought is it must be crazy. Like it must be crazy in DC. But if you love history and you love America, then does it just energize you?
Some days it does, and some days it's a struggle. And maybe that's like life in general, you know. But we were just down last night at Georgetown, the waterfront, and there's the Washington Monument, the Thomas Jefferson across the way. And
Oh,
those are days that I love living Washington, D.C.
absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you come and talk to us about all things that have to do with virtue and principles for our country. Why don't you tell a little bit about how you came to have this passion for all things patriotic.
Well, just like you, Mona, I'm a mama of five children, and I began. It was a natural thing for me to want to teach my children little Bible stories and instill in them virtues and attributes of Christ through the Holy Word and pray with them because that's what I saw my mama do. I came from a family of nine. So when my kids were little, I'd do a little, we'd tell a little Bible story in the morning while they were eating their little breakfast from their little Tykes plastic table together. And then as they got older, I began to get a little concerned as now that, I'm sending them off into middle school and not quite feeling good about some of the things that the public schools are teaching them. And so I was living at that time in a small town in Hood River, Oregon, right on the Columbia Gorge there. And there was a mother one day that was watching a program called Glenn Beck. He had a program. I didn't even know who Glenn Beck was like 15 years ago. And he held up this book called The 5,000 Year Leap. And he said, Mothers, you need to get together and start book groups and start and study these 28 principles of liberty and then go home and teach them to your children. So that's exactly what about six of us mamas did because we were worried about what our children were now being taught in the middle schools and high schools. And so we would meet once a month for 2 hours, and we weren't historians, we weren't legal scholars, we were just mothers worried about our children, rising generations. And when those kind of women come together and you pray and you're seeking to learn to shore up the four walls of your home, God is there and he's gonna be right there by your side. And we felt it. So we would gather, we mamas would try and figure out these principles of liberty once a month for a couple hours, and we became like best friends. We gave ourselves a cool name. I mean, if you got to have a book group, we called ourselves the Sisters of Liberty.
Oh,
And
love
then
it.
inevitably, we came home and we began to teach the things that we were learning as mothers to our children. Some would teach the kids over the dinner hour, some would teach their kids these little stories and miracles of America before they put them to bed. I would teach them in the morning in a family devotional that I had had ever since the kids were little. So I began to expand our family devotional to include miracles and stories and principles of America. And my husband and I would teach this little devotional in the morning together. And at first, when I started to introduce, principles of liberty, he thought I was becoming a right wing nut. But his heart was pricked because he's a good man. And he would say a few years later he would go on to run for the state senate, and I've heard him say it was what my wife learned in those cottage meetings with other women
Wow.
that she brought home and taught in our home that was the impetus of sparking something in me to
Wow.
run for office and walk the talk. And so I began to see when mama knows and understands the miracles and the stories of America and reveres the founding fathers and the Constitution, so will her family.
Wow. That's amazing. Isn't that? Oh, who said it? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Uh,
Who said
Abraham
that?
Lincoln,
Somebody.
one of
A
those
lot of
great
people.
founders.
I know I've
A
heard
lot
it.
of people.
A lot of people have said it. Isn't that the truth? So, so good. Well, tell us what you have to share for it with us today.
Well, it's interesting. So many mamas want to know how can I get my children to love America and to want to aspire to be like the great men and women of the past. And really, these were men and women of virtue. And sometimes, we think virtue just has to do with being physically or morally or spiritually pure and clean. But really, virtues are attributes of Christ and of noteworthy people that have gone on to overcome and to do heroic things. And so, how do we teach, our children these principles of virtue? That's what mamas always ask. How can I get it deep within them? And
Mhm.
so, really, and being a virtuous person is having the moral courage to do what is right when no one is around, when no one is looking. And so I teach a class for Moms for America. I'm their, like you said, I'm their national instructor. So I teach a beautiful series of 12 introductory classes that are basically how to raise the next generation of patriots. And one of the classes is teaching your children the valor of virtue. And virtue is really just a qualities of a soul way of living. It's a reflection of
Mm.
the image and likeness of God that we want our children to to go forth into the world and have this godly walk. Because when you're in God, you have a purpose when you wake up in the morning. You know who you look to, and you know where what you're doing and where you want to be going. And so that is, our can will be our discussion today, is how do we teach our children these virtues, and how do we get it deep inside them, and how do they, how does it influence them when no one is watching?
It is really interesting. Sam Sorbo wrote a book called Word Warriors. Excellent book. I suggest that any mom gets it. But it's how our culture has taken words and redefined them. Now, I don't have to tell anybody that it does that. The book doesn't have any surprises that, oh my gosh, that is exactly what's going on in our culture. But to the degree I hadn't realized how deep the changing of words and definitions and the adjustment of things actually was affecting the moral culture of our country.
Mhm.
And when we were a country that was built on God, and you know the history of those men that came over,
Mhm.
then you can see why they would want those things not only in their children but in their schools.
Mhm.
And, when you look back at the way it started, when you learn the truth, Wall Builders is another place for you moms to go and find really good stuff. There's a series called Rush Revere. It's a series of books written by Rush Limbaugh for kids, and the stories are amazing. When you add in those kind of things, and the Tuttle twins, right? When we add in these kind of things to our children's lives, and then we're learning the really deeper things through things like the cottage meeting, then instilling all of that doesn't just create patriots. Like you said, it creates godly people that literally pursue virtue. I
Mhm.
have to tell you, it's kind of like when I used to go and ask women, do you know what femininity is? When Because I teach on biblical womanhood. Do you know
Mhm.
what femininity is? It was very difficult for most women to be able to say what it is.
Mhm.
Another one is virtue. And like you said, they think it's like being a virgin, like you're a virtuous woman, like you don't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
And that isn't what it is. And
Mhm.
it's one of those words that have been hijacked
Mhm.
by our culture. And
Mhm.
I'm so excited that you're here today to help our moms like take this word back.
Mhm.
Virtue. And I love the valor because that's going to appeal to our boys who want
Right.
to be valor. They
Right.
want to be.
Right.
And anyways, I'm really excited about being able to talk about what we do. So help us.
Okay.
Help us a little bit.
Okay.
I know you have a lot more for the Moms Like Us Academy. And just for you girls that
Yes.
are in the Moms Like Us Academy, Juleen is going to be doing a master class in this month. And you're going to get a lot deeper because in the Moms Like Us Academy, we learn stuff because motherhood is not a natural talent, sweetie. It's a skill and you can learn it. And that's what we do in the academy. So give us a little tidbit of what they're going to get.
One of the best tools I used when I was trying to teach my children virtues was a book, and this was in our morning devotional, called The Family Virtue Guide: Simple Ways to Bring Out the Best in Our Children and Ourselves.
Oh, I love
And this guide has about 55 different types of virtues. And so each chapter is a virtue, like uh, cleanliness, consideration, courage, determination, faithfulness, generosity, honesty, humility, joyfulness. mercy, obedience, self-discipline, steadfastness. I mean, there's a bajillion virtues, but they have 55 really great virtues that children, I would say, from ages 3 to 18 would understand. So in our morning devotional in the morning, before I get the kids off to school, we'd read a little story from the Bible, and we teach a little story or a miracle of America, and we would teach them a virtue. And I would take one virtue a week. And this is how simple it was. So let's say the very first virtue is, I'm not sure if you can see it, assertiveness. And I would just write out the definition, because in each chapter they give you what is the virtue. They give you some definitions. So I'd write a little definition, and we would go over the virtue. And in the chapter, it has a little section where, okay, why would we need to practice assertiveness? How do we practice it? And then little scenarios of what it would look like. So they give you a little scenario, and then you'd ask the kids, what would assertiveness look like in this instance? And then, like on Friday, the last part of the chapter is signs of success. They tell you a little story, and then you have to say, is that an example of assertiveness or not an example?
Ooh.
And for some reason, the kids really like that. And I did that for about 8 years. Probably three, I don't know, 3 to 4 days out of the 5 school days, we would do this little family devotional, and we would focus on that one virtue. And so, you do that over the course of time, and you begin to plant within them seeds of
Mm.
development of character. Because virtue, when you can plant these seeds of virtue, it leads to their character, and ultimately, character leads to destiny. And so now I have 5 living kids, 2 little sons in the heaven, 5 wild and 11 on this earth, and ranging from 27 on down to 14. And everything that I teach, I've tried out in my home. They're my guinea pigs. So I know what has worked in my home and what hasn't been so effective. And teaching these virtues through the years, I have seen the results in some of the circumstances and ways in which my children have encountered adversity, and how they've been able to go through it. Because these virtues, and the wonderful thing about a virtue is oftentimes you'll wrap that virtue or trait in a story. So you'll teach the virtue through a story. And so all these virtues told through stories helps build that child's reservoir. So when they hit hardships or trials, they'll think back to that story. Like my
Mm.
little girl at 19 decided to serve a church mission service in the Amazon of Peru, the Amazon River. And she said, Mom, it was so hard. She said, I felt like coming home so often. I mean, there was lice and dengue fever and dirt roads, but she's walking the dusty roads of, Iquitos, Peru, teaching Jesus Christ. And she said, there were times I really would have gone home, but she said, I'll never forget that story of George Washington. And we have a big picture of Mount Vernon on our mantle. And probably once a week in the family devotional, I'd
Oh.
point to Mount Vernon, and I'd say, look, George Washington wanted to give up so much during that 8 years of that miserable
Mm.
Revolutionary War, and 8 more years as the president. He never wanted to be the president for 8 years. He longed for the ease of the way of his Mount Vernon and just to go home. And she says, Mom, but because he didn't, it made all the difference to you and I. Look what we have today, our freedom,
Mm.
our liberty, this beautiful country. And she said, I remember you telling me that story of his perseverance and his courage and his vision that he had. Now, these are all attributes, right? These are all virtues. And she said, it helped me to stay the course, because I knew maybe what I was teaching might make all the difference
Mm.
to one person. And mostly, Mona, it made the difference to her, because it taught her that she could do hard things and God had her back. And she, could look to him, and she could do this thing. And so, that is an example of teaching your children virtues, wrapping the virtue in a story, and then seeing it rise up in them in their hour of need to overcome, and not to quit and give up, but to keep going.
That is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And then your husband becomes a senator.
I know.
What?
I know. I mean, you think teaching these principles of liberty and freedom to your children are going to, shore them up and help develop their little destiny. But who would ever think that it would change the course of your marriage? So yes, my husband went on to run and win. And then he travels around the country teaching about principles of liberty and freedom. And that's not even his full-time gig, but it's just deep, so deep within him. And he not only does this, but he and I travel together and we speak together. So, me learning these principles of liberty and freedom, these stories and miracles of America, it changed me as a woman. It changed my marriage. It changed the way we taught our children. And now, our children, as they're older and out in the world, they're that change for good.
I think it is really interesting how the virtues the virtues do not apply to evil. They just don't apply to evil. And they apply to God's attributes and his character. But there's nothing about them that's evil. And I think that is such it's so important. I guess I'm holding back because I don't want to just slam the school system so badly, but I think they kind of deserve it in this area. They want kids to act right, but they don't teach them what right is. And so it just like you don't have to teach a boat to drift. You don't have to teach a child to drift towards the wrong way. You have to help them course correct and follow the right way. And these kind of things are exactly what needs to take place. Tell me about how the moms who are in your cottage meetings. Tell the girls about the cottage meetings.
So the cottage meetings are just a group of women meeting together to share experiences, to teach one another. And so, once again, no one is an expert on the Constitution necessarily or history, but we have a desire to shore up the four walls of our home because we're worried about our rising generation. So it's kind of a cottage meeting. The women can come and meet together. They can meet together once a month. They can meet together once a week, whatever the needs of the group is. But it's kind of like a Bible study, except for liberty. And so as you come and study and learn these principles, it's the most natural thing in the world then to go home and share them with the people that you love. And so every week I teach online classes to mothers all across America. And I have actually attended in-home cottage meetings, attended or taught them for 15 years. And the stories that
Wow.
I could tell you are life changing. Cottage meetings are transformative in a woman's life because when she gets this truth and these principles in her, then, she becomes so confident in her ability to know that, wait a minute, I'm the best teacher my children will ever have. I am the most qualified to arm them up with the things that they need to know as they go out in the world and fight their battles and stand for truth and righteousness. And so their ability to have confidence in themselves just grows tenfold. And, a righteous mother is God's secret weapon. And I do
Yes.
believe that the evil one fears a righteous, a worthy, educated mama who is trying. We're not perfect,
No.
but as you're trying to learn and figure out this, I have found that God will magnify your capacity to understand, and you're off to the races.
Well, I went through everything. I haven't attended the cottage meetings because the academy just has me so full of work and all the mentoring of the moms. But I'm going to offer this in the academy to see how many moms want to do this because I think that this is well, being Warren Corwin's wife, I just like your husband. I'm learning those kind of things, and it is so important. And then I love the way that you weaved it with the scripture because I don't think that we can always like biblicify everything, but I think when it comes to character and virtue, we can because we're going to see it through not just through Jesus Christ, we're going to see it through all the people in the Bible when they had virtue and when they did not have virtue.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I love that.
Mona, those are some of the best stories. So, we're reading the Old Testament right now and studying about mighty men of valor,
Mm,
Joshua and Gideon and King David's men that he put on the front line, how they were courageous and strong and passionate. And at the same time, it weaves in the stories of Abigail and that wise woman who
hmm.
saved her city. And they
She
were
did.
brave in a different sort of way. And they were peaceable and faithful and fearless. And so you can just pull the best virtues from these stories in the Bible, And so there's a wonderful book called The Story Bible that is a resource. Moms from America offers, and it just pulls out the stories in the old world King James language, because we want the kids to get used to that biblical language. But so you can just read the actual story though and have a great discussion about, well, okay, what does it mean to be a wise woman today? When you walk down the halls of high school, how could you be a wise woman? And so you pull the trait out of the Bible and then you liken it and apply it to what their little walk is today.
Well, and that's exactly what the Word of God is for, right?
Absolutely.
It totally is. Oh my gosh. So, what's on the horizon for you? Like, what's going on with Moms for America and your part with the cottage meetings? Do you have any dreams and visions for what is going on there?
Well, this summer we're doing mom summits. So I just got back from Detroit, Michigan, and spoke to a wonderful group of moms and dads. It's not just Moms for America, it's Families for America. And my husband
Hmm.
and I teach classes in the evening times for dads and dudes and grandpas. So I always like to say when I teach my evening online classes, this is Families for America. So I'll be in Pennsylvania and Colorado and maybe Wisconsin and Virginia, and we're talking to groups of moms that are wanting to be a part of the solution. And so, really, our cottage meeting is our signature program because it lays the foundation for them. And once they get these stories and miracles and principles in them, then they rise up and have courage not only to teach their children, but maybe get more involved in the school systems or in their neighborhoods or communities, to maybe go to a school board meeting or to testify. I mean, we've had mothers go through the programs, the cottage meeting program, and run for the school board because they were so inspired by some of the stories in them. One mother said, Juleen, when you taught the story of Joan of Arc, how God was with this little 14-year-old girl, little French girl, to win the war against England, and an opportunity came for me to run for the school board, I thought, if God was with Joan of Arc, he is going to be with me. And so she ran, and by golly, she won.
That's
And
awesome.
she not only won, but she convinced 6 other people in her town to run for the board or the city council, and all 7 of them won. And so, that is the power of cottage meetings, of coming together to learn, to realize there's a lot of mothers and grandmothers like me. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that doesn't think everything is right here. And so you're buoyed up and shored up because you can see there's a lot of women and mothers like you. And the wonderful thing is when you meet actually in your community, you can pool your resources, and maybe 5 of you will go, let's all go to the cottage, or let's go to the school board meeting in 2 weeks from now. So you all 5 go and show, and you know you'll be surprised how quickly your little cottage meeting might grow from 5 to 10 to 15 to 25 to 35. And ideally you want them to be just about, I don't know, 10, 15, so you can have good participation. Yeah, so that's what we're doing this summer, and then I'll be teaching classes this fall. We're going to take a little hiatus, 2 month break from live classes. All these classes are free. They're online, momsforamerica.us. Go to cottage meetings, then virtual cottage meetings, the 12 introductory classes that I teach. One of them being the Valor of Virtue is in this manual. You can buy it at our store. I think it's $20. And so all those 12 lessons are taught by me. They're online. There's 16 week class of Healing of America that really, boy, that seminar gave me the bedrock of my foundation of history and the Constitution. And those 16 classes are there. Me and my husband just finished teaching a 12-week, the 28 principles of liberty that changed the world, the 5,000-year leap. So, become a little student. God rewards efforts. So if you go on and just listen, these classes are all just 1 hour. You listen to the little class a couple times a week and then join the live classes. you will be amazed how your heart begins to change and your confidence level and your ability now to want to teach your children. And your children, you will be the best teacher your children will have. And as you share, these stories of virtues through interesting stories of the past, our founding mothers and founding fathers, they will feel the spirit by which you're teaching, and you will become a trusted confidant to them. And you will lay the seeds and foundations for them when you're not there anymore. And they will remember mama's and grandma's teachings and her stories, and it will give them the courage to rise up and to fight the battle that God needs them to fight.
That is absolutely inspiring. You're just an inspiration. Thank you so much for being with us today. With all of the I love podcasts and I love our Liftable TV show and I love all of that. And but you can't get it all in a 30-minute podcast. You can't learn from a 3-point Pinterest post. We want to. I mean, I guess you can learn how to fold a flag, but you're not going to be able to learn the kind of things that Juleen is talking about here and that Moms for America offers on their site. And instead of listening to two podcasts, maybe back to back, you're listening to a 1 hour offering from Juleen and the Moms for America, and you're learning true principles that will change you from deep within. Um, you know why, sweeties? Moms like us, we got to do things like this. We
Yes.
just have to. We're not. I think you'll agree with me, Juleen, that we're not in Kansas anymore. But I mean, we're not in the same kind of moral Christian Judeo society. We are not sending our kids to school with people that shore up and reflect our values. The teachers are not allowed to do certain things. Not that they wouldn't. Sometimes they're just not allowed to. And even the churches, going into the churches, they have to be careful. And so it's all come underneath this slight weirdness. And the place where it has to happen is your house. This whole month we're going to be talking about different kinds of educations on our show, and I have to tell you, it doesn't matter where you. Well, it does matter where you send your kids. You need to know where to send your kids, but every child should be homeschooled about things like this. You just it takes a long time to learn all of these things, all of the virtues and the stories, and it takes a long time to have it sewn into you, the scriptures and the stories about David and the kings and all of that. And it has to come from the home. We can no longer have the world doing our job. It's too dangerous at this point because if we don't teach them, the culture will. And we certainly don't want that, right? Do you have any final words?
No, well, I mean, come on, I'm a mom. I have a lot of final words, but what you said was so, so true and so beautiful that it starts at home. Teaching virtues and that will ensure, liberty and freedom. It starts at home. Liberty begins at home. It's not hereditary. It has to be earned. It has to be learned. It's not a permanent quality either. You have to continually cultivate it in the hearts of the child. But as you do, it'll help them be anchored in hope. So, as you learn and study it, it anchors you in hope, and then you become a great stabilizing force for them while they are, within the four walls of the home. And then they go out and become a stabilizing force and an anchor to others. And that's what it is to be a
Yeah.
light on the hill. And, we're going to be okay because we know in the end God prevails. I mean, we've read the book. We know who wins, but the battle is going to be hotly contested and it's going to be fierce. And so we got to raise up these mighty men and women of valor, and we do that by wrapping them in these beautiful traits, these beautiful attributes of Christ, and they will, you know they will emulate Christ, and their walk will be godly, and they will know who to call upon when they're in the midst of their furnace or fire, so to speak, and they will prevail, and they will know it, because those virtues are deep within them, those stories are deep within them, and it has become a part of their character, and it will affect and impact the happiness and the joy that they find in their life, and it will determine their destiny, and their destiny is to do good, and to be a mighty man and woman of valor, and to be in this fight, and to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And boy, when you have that infused in you, you wake up each day ready to roll. You some days you might be a little more concerned, but you're not just drenched in some of this mental issue of depression and anxiety that we're seeing so pervasive now, especially among young people. When you have these kids steeped in story and virtue, they know how to overcome. They know who to look to, and it will infuse them with hope and optimism and vision for the future.
I couldn't. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We're going to end our program on that because it was just absolutely beautiful. Moms, you can do this. Your marriage matters, your mothering matters, and you know what? You matter. And God loves you, and He wants you to be infused with His character. So we will see you next time on Moms Like Us Do Things Like This because we do. We need to do it, right? We do. Bye for now.